Hello, my name is Erik Szczygieł, and today I want to show you how I designed and illustrated this Kurozei character for a comic book for a client that contacted me who wants to make a comic book and release it. I have no idea when, but yeah, so I guess let's get started. So basically, painting females and drawing females and designing females is something that I extremely sucks in, because usually when I draw something or paint something or illustrate something, most of the time it's some sort of a monster, creature, undead or something like this. So I would not say painting females is anything that I'm really accustomed to. But I did my best and tried my best, and I learned something new, which was fun. It was also completely out of my comfort zone, so it was kinda interesting thing for me to try, and I think it turned out okay. I already see some things that I would like to change, but let's start the discussion with how I tackle the whole design. So basically, after getting the description, I tried to pinpoint the most interesting things, like the most important things for the design, and I decided to make some sort of a list out of it. So I had like a really quick cheat sheet to look in if I would forget something about the design. So I will understand what I need to design, and I will understand what I want to paint. And after doing all this, I basically went to Pinterest and searched for some references, to search for some images. Usually, if it's possible, I try to search for as many references as possible, so like I have the general idea what I want to make, and maybe sometimes I will just pretty much inspire myself or grab some sort of an idea from different source. So I strongly believe I don't need to pretty much invent everything, like to reinvent the wheel. Some things just look good and will work well if you will only just combine them. So in this case, I pretty much only typed some sort of a cyberpunk or something like this and just search for nice images, and also discuss these images with the client, because yeah, it's nice to understand what their point of view is on the design. So the more I understand what client likes and what he thinks will look good, the better thing I am able to give to them, to provide them, or draw. So I think this type of things, it's, as I said, as I usually say, it's quite interesting, and it's just fun because you can just go to the internet and collect nice pictures, and it's always nice to collect nice pictures. And after doing this, I searched for some different artworks, so for some different body types for this character, because I had the general idea how she should look like. But since I'm by any means not a really like specialized guy in painting females, I pretty much search for another references, for another inspirations, also to discuss with the client what type of like artworks she likes most. So once again, it will be easier for me to understand what the clients pretty much wants. And all of these artworks are really amazing. Like, I never thought doing this type of thing is really hard, but after trying it for myself, it's extremely hard. So it was right, it was really difficult for me, and I tried to search the original artist to pretty much show you. So this one did the shadow, this was done by Nitro, this by Art86, and this one was done by Juhan, or however to write this. So it was also helpful because just without any type of sketching or without pretty much anything, I was able to communicate with the client that she likes this type of work most, or this body type will work best, or pretty much anything. So in this case, Art86 was like her favorite choice in terms of visual direction. So this was my reference from the beginning. And after discussing pretty much everything with her, like going back and forth with the ideas, I started doing some really basic sketches just to get a little bit better idea of what she might like, or pretty much whatever. So in this case, because this Kurozei lady, because Kurozei is her name, is a cyborg, I wanted to, and she's a replicant, and like you can dismember her, like she can lose her arm and she can replace the arm and everything. I wanted to make some sort of a body type that will be made out of parts, so the lines between the arms and legs will be clearly visible, so it will strongly suggest that she is enhanced or she is a cyborg or something like this. But also wanted to search for something that will fit to this whole idea of her being a really quick killer and to make her look a little bit more graceful. And in this case, as far as I remember, the number 5 was the best choice, because there were like the most fluid lines, like the silhouette looked pretty much the best, and also the distinction between the parts, like between the legs and arms and pretty much all the things, pretty much were based strictly on the anatomy, like on the muscle shapes or the main muscle groups, so I felt like it was the most natural thing to go with. And after choosing this body type, I pretty much went and tried to like develop it a little bit further. So I tried to include a little bit more anatomy, because as far as I remember, the client wanted her to still have some muscles, like not to be a complete cyborg or replicant or something like this, but she still has some muscles. So in this case, I kinda tried to show that she is pretty muscular, since she is really enhanced in her craft, because she is an assassin, and to reinforce the main, like the most used areas, like the most used places in the human body. So in this case, because she probably will do like a shitload of jumping and killing and slashing and everything, I thought like reinforcing her elbows or knees or ankles and wrists will be a quite good idea. And in this case also I came up with the idea that some of the like sections of her body will have some sort of a heat sinks, so if she will enter the complete battle mode and she will fight with the fierce rage, she will pretty much go extremely hot inside, like the core will really get hot, and she will release the hot by the heat, by the heat sinks. And also it kinda fits to the idea that when she is like slashing and killing, that she leaves the rainbow trail behind her, because it was one of the ideas for her, but in this case it got replaced pretty much at the end. Not like the rainbow got replaced by the red like steam or something that results from her overheating, so the trail she will leave behind her pretty much is a heat wave. So it's kinda cool, because something that was at the beginning purely visual thing now kinda has some sense to it, and I usually, if it's possible, prefer to give some visual cues that something like this is happening. So in this case, battles and fighting will be even more cool, because she will leave like the heat wave behind her, and it will make sense. And also I tried doing some faces, and once again I'm not that good with the faces, especially with designing faces, so it was kind of funny for me and kind of challenging for me. But in this case we went with like C mixed with E. So yeah, it's pretty much all in this stage. And after having like the body type that the client liked, it was the first one. Also I thought it was the best. Choose the best options from all these 3 options. I went to design some clothing for her, so it will give and show a little bit more of the character of the, like a little bit more of the character, if it makes sense. So it was also kind of funny, because it was pretty much just playing with shapes, playing with colors, trying to come up with something interesting. So I really enjoyed that part. I don't remember if I have ever done something like this, maybe in more like fantasy, middle age. Yeah, I definitely done this in some sort of a middle fantasy, in the world of fantasy and sword and dragons and everything, but I have never done this thing in cyberpunk or like modern times in terms of clothing. So it was also funny to research some clothing, like pretty much what people wear, what is all this cyberpunk culture, how they like clothe themselves. So yeah, it was funny. And in this case my favorite was B, C and H, and I really like the I version, because as I mentioned before, she was supposed to leave some sort of a rainbow trail, like a rainbow thing when she moves, and I thought maybe giving her some sort of a clothing that will leave this rainbow thing behind her will be cool. But as I said, later it was like we figured out that the heatsinks can leave the trail behind her, so it will be a little bit more cool. And in this case we went with H combined with C and combined with B, as I suggested to her, so this is pretty much how the final clothing looked like. So it's, yeah, kinda modern, kinda assassin-ish like, and I pretty much like it. I think it looks kinda cool. Also, I really like this pants things that they are cut out from the side. I think it looks really interesting, and I strongly believe I have never seen anything like this in real life, so it's kinda cool. Also, for her back, I decided to cut out a circle on her back and to implement some sort of a magnetic squares, so she can pretty much take her swords, because she will be using 2 katanas or 2 swords or long swords or anything, but I believe she will end up using katanas for the whole series. So pretty much she can just mount them to her back, like to do some like this cross swords for performing an X on her back, and it will make kind of sense because she can overlap the swords and they will pretty much be connected with magnets to her back. So I felt it's pretty nice and pretty neat way to mount the swords. Also, she can mount them like vertically, so there's no need for the swords doing an X. And at first the thing on the back was like a pure X, like looking like this, but when I was painting this I kinda started moving and stretching and everything, and I kinda felt like doing this type of like move when you take your arms back and pinch your shoulders together will be pretty much impossible if she will have like a sturdy X on her back, so it will limit her movement possibilities. So I decided to like split this thing up and pretty much looked at the mirror if the squares where I imagined them to be will touch together. So in this case, as I did in here, they don't, so it will still allow her to move pretty freely. And even if one of the swords disconnect from one magnet, I believe this size of an electromagnet will be strong enough to hold the weight of the whole sword. And after finishing everything, but after pretty much rendering the whole character, so she looks nice, I also designed some masks for her, because when she is in battle mode, she is wearing a blank mask. So in this case I went with number 8. I felt it's like the best choice because it's a blank mask, it's kinda emotionless, but it is still customized and has the 2 most distinct facial features on the mask, so pretty much everybody will know that's her mask. So yeah, as you can see, not in here, but in the final rendering you will be able to see how it looks. And now I will show you how I drew and painted the whole body and how I made it look nice, and also will give you some artists that I was watching to help myself with the rendering and everything, because as I said, it's extremely out of my comfort zone and I needed to like teach myself some things and to see how other people were painting stuff, so I will be able to make something like at least kinda similar to the artworks I like. So yeah, in here just watch the process if you like. So from now on I will be doing a voiceover, because for me it's pretty much impossible to draw and paint and talk at the same time. Also, this thing is sped up by 2000%, so it's 20 times sped up. The whole drawing, painting, like the rendering the front and like almost rendering, like doing a really basic rendering of the back, took around 5 hours or something like this. So I guess I could put way much work in it, so I could spend, for example, like 20 hours on it, but I don't think it was really necessary, since it is going to be a simplified, like in the end the product will be a simplified comics. So I kind of thought she will be, there is a need for her to be easy to draw. So also this is one of the main reasons why there is not like a shitload of details on her, because I wanted to make it a little bit easier for the comic artist later to draw everything properly and to have like this really strong shape. So for example, there's a really clear distinction between her body and the clothing, and also baggy clothing, I strongly believe, is a little bit more interesting to draw, especially if she will move a lot. It will allow the artist to draw all these cool stretches and everything to add a lot of dynamic things into the whole pose. But for the drawing itself, I wanted to pretty much just do almost the same pose, but put her a little bit more in perspective, so there will be some sort of a ground plane. Usually when I do concepts, I noticed I tend to draw without the perspective, so everything is a little bit more like flat, like kinda like you will be using a long lens, and the field of view like is really narrow, so there is pretty much no dynamic perspective. And I kinda think it was one of the things that were bothering me a bit, especially in the end, because I thought maybe if I will play a little bit more with perspective, it will look a little bit more cool. So in this case, I know what I need to study, so it's also a little bit more eye-opening. So for example, if you take a picture of yourself in the mirror, and I took some pictures of myself in the mirror, especially for the swords. I thought like the next thing for me to level up will be to learn how to draw characters in perspective. So you pretty much will be using all the time the 3-point perspective, and the feet will be a little bit smaller, the legs will be shorter because of the perspective foreshortening. So yeah, this is kind of things that I took away from this painting. And in here at the moment I'm also doing some sort of a shape blocking, so it will be a little bit more easier for me to render everything. I pretty much like this method. I don't like to do everything really perfectly at this moment, so there is like, it is kind of done by hand, like with certain degree of mistakes, because after doing some sort of a basic rendering, I pretty much will go with the new layer all over everything, and I will be able to paint over the lines also, because in the final I want to keep the amount of lines to the minimum. And in here I also gave myself a little bit of a background, so I really prefer to work with dark backgrounds at the beginning, because I can see a little bit more, I can see a lot better in the dark spots of the paintings, so it will be easier for me to make a really wide range of values, so I can like pinpoint all the details and everything. And also it looks a little bit like cooler if you work on a dark background, I think. The nice thing is, if you work with some sort of a background, you give yourself some sort of a information how the light should look like what is the information in the painting and how you should lit up your painting. And I kind of had this idea of like putting her in the final in some sort of a like really bright white space, so I tried to keep the light really soft and kind of like from the above. So also this is why the environment looks like it looks, so it's kind of distinct that the light source is coming from the top, but it will be really soft. So having this information about the light made it a lot easier for me to paint everything. And yeah, it was kind of cool to work this way. Also for the artist that I really like, I think in this case the most helpful thing I saw was the things done by In-Hyuk Lee. I will link him to the description down below, and also I will place him somewhere in here to subscribe to his channel, because pretty much after watching some of his videos I got like more or less the idea how to approach this type of painting, especially once again because I'm not really used to paint humans, especially females, standing and just posing I'm really more like a monster type of guy. So yeah, his tutorials were really helpful because you can pretty much see how he works and how everything is done. Also on the left side you can see some references that I downloaded from the internet, because I also wanted to give myself a little bit more idea about the material folding and how the material behaves on the body, because like pretty much the only thing I was aware of was that the shirt between the breast kind of like stretches, like it's doing these horizontal lines, but I still needed some sort of a reference, so I typed something like a blouse, a hoodie, something like this. And I found the reference pretty quickly, so it was pretty much identical for what I needed, and it also helped me with the materials. I pretty much never studied the material folding like properly. I usually do this thing kinda by the logic, so if here he moves, it will stretch to this way. But I kind of felt after doing this painting that I will need to also study some materials, because I guess it will make everything easier and faster, so why not to study it? It's kinda really basic thing. And also maybe I have never studied it properly because, as I said, I usually paint monsters, and monsters usually wear some sort of a rags and everything is torn and everything is in blood, so there's not much folding in it. But yeah, in this case it was needed. And now I'm kind of trying to figure out how to paint the skin and just refining the details, trying to make everything look nice. And in here also I downloaded some sort of a abdomen reference, like with a slight muscle definition, because I also wanted this character to have some sort of a muscle definition, but not too much, so she won't look extremely ripped. Maybe in some chapters of the comics she will like go extreme battle rage mode and she will pump every single muscle with blood and whatever she has like inside her, and maybe she will be extremely ripped, or after like fighting for some hours she will lose all the water in her body and the muscles will just basically go through the skin. But in the concept I wanted to make her a little bit more I wanted to soften the muscle definition a little bit more. So yeah, I guess that was the only reference. That was the last reference I took, if I won't count the hands with the swords, that the photos that I took of myself, so I'll have a little bit more idea how to draw a hand. Because like with hands it's always the same story. You can study drawing hands, you pretty much know what the hand is built of, but there are so many little subtle things about the hands, like if you will move it like this, move it like that, something will stretch, something will overlap, there will be some sort of a weird foreshortening, for example, like with this short finger in here, and it's really easier to just take a photo and draw based on the photos instead of learn every single possible situation. Of course, the more you will draw based on the photos, the better you will get, because after doing like a lot of studies of human muscles, proportions, figures and everything, there's like maybe 10 like hand positions that you will use most of the time. So some sort of a like connected fingers, or like a cloth type of hand, and this zombie thing that goes like this, or for a caster doing something like this. So if you will learn like the really basic hand setups, you can reuse them pretty much all the time. Also some sort of a holding, so when you do something like this or something like this, it's just every time it's almost the same story. So it was kind of fun to do. Like I really also enjoy, like I think it's a really neat part of designing everything and of painting everything is to like make your own references, so it's a little bit more engaging in a way. So instead of just sitting and drawing whole day and painting and just sitting and doing nothing For example, you will need to go grab some lights, just place them on the ground, try to like come up with the idea how to mount something like really high if you don't have anything that can support it, or how to make some sort of a light look bluish or reddish or anything, and just to make like your own references. I think it's cool because you can engage a little bit more into this design. You can feel a little bit more the design by yourself. So also in here I'm holding some sort of a shitty sword that is like extremely old. I remember when my father gave it to me, like I have no idea how many years ago, and it was cool, and I'm at the moment kind of surprised how many times I used it, because when I draw anything with a sword, like this is the only sword that I have, and it's like doing this rattling sound. I think I have it somewhere in here, or at least I did. Yeah, here it is. So like, yeah, it's really easy, really old stuff, but as you can see, like the whole blade is moving. It's, I guess if I will like pull on it, it will fall apart, because basically it's just a screw inside of it. But this everything happening on the hilt is really nice. So yeah, and also there is a really cool badass. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's not on this side. There is a dragon in here, so yeah, solid piece of metal. But for the references, when I want to like go with something like this or like this or like this or whatever, it's pretty perfect. So if you have a possibility to buy something like this cheaply, it will really make your life easier. And yeah, I'm planning to also buy some sort of a axis or some maybe metal parts, so I will be able to make better references. And I guess that's all. In here you can see the final painting. So if you have any questions, and if you like just type them in the comments, and if you like the video, just like and subscribe or share or anything. I hope you learned something new and you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it. So thanks for watching and goodbye.